Hey there. Good to see everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Jodi Skulls, and I am your instructor for the MBLEx review course. Yes. So welcome. Today we are studying movement. We are studying kinesiology of the shoulder joint. Yes. So 7 movements we're going to be looking at and a bunch of different muscle groups that produce that movement. To let you know how class is going to go today, it's in 3 rounds. The first is a test-taking strategy to help streamline your experience between now and when you're sitting in the testing center. Think about that for a minute. Sitting in the testing center. Take a breath. Take a breath. Yeah. And before you even start, when you sit down at that testing center, you're imagining it now. Just breathe, breathe. So we're going to do a test-taking strategy. We're going to do some learning, and then we're going to dissect questions as our third part of class today. Get ready for your test-taking strategy. This is a test-taking strategy is a way to approach the test to understand the MBLEx. We talk about that it's a computer adaptive test. We talk about breathing during your test, but I'm going to talk about something you could start today. And that is a savings account. Do you have a savings account? Hmm. I would strongly recommend that you set up a savings account and every week put $25 in your savings account toward your MBLEx. Yes, Tara and I were talking about this earlier in the week, and we talked about it with Shireen as well. $25 a week. Yes. And in 10 weeks, you have $250. Some of you want to get fancy and you want to put it on autopilot. Do you pay any of your bills automatically that, an automatic amount just gets taken out? Yeah. Yeah. So you could put that $25 on automatic. Yeah. Or you could get in the good habit of stopping by the bank and putting $25 in that savings account. You barely feel it during the week. And it's a beautiful habit to start. Savings is so important. Savings. And look, I'm going to scare you a little bit. Best practices says that you have 3 to 6 months of savings in the bank. You know who was happy they did that? The people were happy, so I should say, during COVID, the people who had 3 to 6 months of savings in the bank had a little bit more peace than those people who couldn't go to work. I was one of the people who couldn't go to work. And boy, I'll tell you, after COVID, it became a really important thing to me to have that savings account, an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of your expenses in a savings account. Start small. Start with $25 a week. Can you do that? Can you put that money aside? Because all of a sudden, 10 weeks from now, you don't have to put your MBLEx exam fee on a credit card. Mm-mm. You've been saving. All right. Making it a little easier to prepare for your exam. Taking that little pinch. Yeah, just pinch out of, paying that 200, it's actually $265 to take the exam. So, in theory, in 11 weeks, boom, you're good. Just $25. If you can do 50, do 50. It's a really great habit to be in. Let's change gears and move into our learning for today. Welcome to the MBLEx review course, or welcome back. Welcome for the first time, or welcome back. Today we are reviewing kinesiology of the shoulder joint. Woo woo! So in our lesson plan, we're going to talk about the bones that make up the shoulder joint. We're going to talk about the muscles, the movements at that shoulder joint. We're also going to talk about some of the superficial and deep muscles, the movements of the scapula. We're taking a deep dive into sits, SITS. Do you remember that from school? SITS? Yeah. And then we'll be dissecting some questions. All right, we're jumping right in. We have three bones in the shoulder joint. Three bones. So, three bones, three joints, three groups of muscles that we're going to be talking about today. Sounds simple enough, right? So, three bones, three joints, and three groups of muscles that make up the shoulder joint. We're also going to be talking about the movement at the shoulder joint. But let's take a peek at where we're talking about. So here are the bones of the shoulder. We've got the clavicle. You may not have thought of the clavicle as part of the shoulder, but it touches the acromion process, which is part of the scapula. And then the bone we think about as the shoulder joint, and that is the humerus. The humerus has a distal and a proximal end, right? Remember, long bones have a distal and a proximal end. The proximal end, the proximal head of the humerus, makes up the shoulder joint. Let's take another look at this picture. This one shows this glenoid cavity. Yes. So here we see the scapula in orange, the humerus in yellow, and here's that clavicle. So can you touch your own clavicle? Go ahead and follow your clavicle out. And you've got the head of that humerus. Yes, the proximal head of the humerus. We're going to make a clear distinction today between movements of the humerus and movements of the scapula. There, that shoulder, right? We're talking about that shoulder area. But we're going to make a clear distinction between movements of that humerus and movements of the scapula. What are our three joints that we're looking at? We said three bones, three joints, and three muscle groups. Let's first look at these three joints. We've got the sternoclavicular joint over here where that clavicle touches the sternum. We've got the AC joint where the acromion process touches the clavicle. So these all three are areas you're going to want to be familiar with. The AC joint stands for the acromioclavicular joint. Acromioclavicular. As you follow that clavicle down towards the sternum, you get the sternoclavicular joint. And then, of course, our fan favorite, the glenohumeral joint. That is what we think of as the true shoulder joint. Now, I will mention the scapulothoracic. If you see scapulothoracic on the MBLEx, what they are talking about is actually the anterior surface of the scapula where that scapula touches the ribs. They call that the scapulothoracic joint or the scapulothoracic interface. It's not a real joint, but sometimes you see it on the MBLEx. Another look at these three joints, different angle. Here's where that sternoclavicular, the AC joint, the acromion process. Do you know what this little guy is down here? Remember what he is? What the name of that guy is on the scapula? Do you remember? Put it in the chat if you remember. All right, and then we've got the glenohumeral joint. So the movement of the humerus happens in the glenohumeral joint. Good, good. Let's see. See? Yes, John Roberts says the coracoid process. Yes, that little thing that looks like a little finger going like, or a little worm. A little worm. It's your coracoid process. It's an interesting little bone, little air bony landmark on the shoulder because on the scapula, because some of our muscles have the name coraco. So you know where their attachment point is. But we're looking at just the joints here right now. AC joint, sternoclavicular joint, and glenohumeral joint. Lovely picture of this guy. Yeah. Here's our clavicle coming across and touching the acromion process. We've got that subacromial bursa. So where does that live? The subacromial bursa is sub under the acromion. Yeah. Now we do have some other subhumeral bursa as well. We don't have that pictured here. Got some ligaments. Here's that front of the scapula. Good. This is where the rotator cuffs attach in that circled area. Head of the humerus. And here you can see how those rotator cuffs help to stabilize the head of the humerus. That joint, even though it's a ball and socket joint, it's pretty wide open. Yeah. And here's our humerus. Lovely. Let's talk about three different groups of muscles. So one you'll remember from school, I think, sits, S-I-T-S, the rotator group, the rotator cuff group. And sometimes they're called the scapulo-humeral group, but it's the sits, the S, supra. See how each letter starts with an S-I-T-S? These guys attach the humerus and the scapula. They start at the scapula, then they touch the humerus. So I don't think you'll see the term scapulo-humeral or humeral group on the MBLEx. But if you did, what do those two words mean? They mean the scapula and the humerus, right? So these are our sit muscles. Let's walk through where they are and what they do. Here are the locations of the sits muscles. So we've got subscapularis in green. It's sub, right? It's under the scapula. So in school, you may have put the dorsal side of your hand on your spine. That pops up the shoulder blade. And under the shoulder blade is where that subscapularis lives. It's in between the shoulder blade and the rib cage. In red, we've got supraspinatus. In blue, we have infraspinatus. In yellow is teres minor. We're going to take a nice deep dive into these guys today. So there are four major muscles of the rotator cuffs. There's just four, S-I-T-S, and they help keep that humeral head in their role not only to rotate the humerus, but also to stabilize the humerus. So take a peek here at the supraspinatus. You can see that spine of the scapula comes through, goes under the acromion. And based on where it is, doesn't it make sense that this would abduct the arm? So it moves the arm, the humerus, just the humerus, away from the midline of the body. So that humerus. So doesn't that make sense based on where it's at, where it attaches? So it's going to, when it shortens, it's going to abduct the arm. I think we have one more picture of that. Oh, we don't. All right, but see it attaches right there at the humeral head. And it lives just above the spine of the scapula. So this bony landmark here is the spine of the scapula. It's a ridge that projects off of your scapula, and it's called the subscapular, excuse me, the supraspinatus fossa. Yeah, supraspinatus fossa. Next, we're going to talk about the infraspinatus. You can see a blue here, it's red here. Yes. And the infraspinatus, you can see again this little red patch here or the big red patch here. It's one of those four rotator cuff muscles, S-I-T-S. And look at where I attaches to the humerus. Again, this is the scapulohumeral group, the sits muscles. All of the sit muscles attach to the humerus. Fun fact. So look at where this little baby, the infraspinatus, attaches. And you can see how it externally rotates the humerus. Now we're going to do a little show and tell here. So external rotation of the humerus. So go ahead and do this with me. So we're going to have our arm out to the side and we're going to externally rotate. All we really care about is this humerus. What's happening from the elbow up. So from that elbow up. So when we externally rotate that humerus, sometimes called lateral rotation, because we're moving that humerus external. We're rotating it away from the body. Now, are you ready? Horizontal abduction. So if it's safe to do so, you can put both arms out and move those arms away from the midline of the body. So move them back. So that's horizontal. I'm on the horizontal plane, right? The horizon, the transverse. So I'm horizontal here, and we're going to move that arm back away. That is called horizontal abduction. And infraspinatus helps with that. Its primary movement is external rotation, but it also helps to horizontally abduct. So it's pulling back. This muscle is in the posterior compartment. So when it shortens, it brings that humerus into either external rotation or into horizontal abduction. I'm going to show you one other way to externally rotate. You probably have seen this one. Put your elbow right next to your ribs. So my elbow is right next to my ribs. And we're going to externally rotate. So starting from this position, elbow against the ribs, external rotation. So there's two different ways to do that, with the elbow bent and with the elbow straight. Both result in the humerus externally rotating. Good stuff. Moving along to teres minor. We're going to talk about minor and major today, but minor is the one that's a part of the rotator cuff group. So S-I-T, T for teres minor. So here's a nice peek at teres minor. Right there again, attaching to the head. So it's the lowest attachment point. Supra is the highest attachment point to the head of the humerus. Infra is in the middle. And then the teres minor is here, the lowest attachment point. And you can see it's lateral. So now, here's a fun fact. Take a look at the description of the teres minor. It is an antagonist muscle to medial rotation. So we're going to talk about the pectoralis muscles and the lat muscles here in just a few minutes. Then how they medially rotate. We were just looking at laterally rotating or externally rotating. So with the infraspinatus. But the teres minor and the infraspinatus are both antagonist muscles to medial rotation. Remember we talked about agonists, antagonists? Yes. So here's a reciprocal relationship. So external and internal rotation, right? So internal rotation is going to be looking more like internal rotation, right? Whereas external, those are opposite movements, just like we looked at when we did flexion of the elbow and extension of the elbow. We had the bicep and the tricep in reciprocal relationships. Yeah, so just a reminder what that means. Good. So this stabilizes the shoulder. Good. And you can see this is again an external rotator along with that infraspinatus. Moving along to the subscapularis. Okay, this is an anterior picture, and you see that red area. We're looking at the front of the subscapularis. Now just pause here for a moment. When we, like, if you're going to scratch someone's back, you might scratch over their shoulder blades. The posterior part of the shoulder blade is what is on the surface there. The anterior part of that shoulder blade touches the ribs. On the MBLEx, be very careful if they're about location of the muscles. Is it on the posterior side of the scapula or the anterior side? All right. And so based on where this muscle attach, so you see this muscle comes out and it attaches right here to the tubercle of the humerus. And so the subscapularis helps to internally rotate. So imagine this red muscle gets shorter. It pulls, and it pulls on that humerus. It's going to be internally rotating. So I'll demonstrate for you internal rotation. So you can see if I'm in anatomical position, I'm not worried about my hand so much or my forearm. I'm looking at the shoulder joint, so the upper arm, but what happens with my hand when I internally rotate. Now we can also internally rotate with our elbow next to our ribs. So elbow next to the ribs, internal rotation. We'll see that demonstrated in cartoons again here in just a moment. Okay, to summarize, supraspinatus helps to, its major movement is abduction of the upper limb, and then it gets assisted by the deltoid muscle. So if you abduct your arm, you can feel that deltoid working. Infraspinatus laterally rotates the arm, teres minor laterally rotates, and then subscapularis medially rotates the arm. Little recap for you. We talked about 3 groups of muscles at the shoulder. So we're going to look at all 3 muscle groups. Some are more superficial, some are more deep, but I just want you to remember where they are because they all create action at either the shoulder joint or the scapula. So we're going to first look at the axial scapular group. Now, if you've never heard that term, don't be surprised. A lot of people have never heard that term. But if you were just seeing that on the MBLEx, what do you recognize? What do you recognize? Scapula, right? Yeah. Do you remember axial? Ooh, axial, right? The axial skeleton versus the appendicular skeleton. So these are muscles that attach the scapula to the skeleton, to the axial skeleton. So it attaches the scapula to the trunk. And so we've got the rhomboids pointed out here. We're going to show you the levator scapula. And look, serratus anterior. I mean, a lot of people think that that is like an oblique muscle. It is actually called the boxer muscle. It actually touches the scapula. It creates movement in the scapula. It's not an oblique. Yeah. So when you box, that's serratus anterior is doing that movement. Let's take a look at what each of these muscles do. And where they are. Here's your levator scapula. These are all muscles that affect the scapula. Yes. And also the lats are going to be used in movement of the humerus as well. So let's take a look here. Ooh, so these four are the ones we're going to focus on right now. Trapezius, levator scap, rhomboid minor, and major. We'll do the lat in just a minute. It's not touching the scapula. Traps, levator scap, and the rhomboids. So the trapezius, the upper fibers, just look at the action with me, okay? The action of the upper fibers is to elevate the scapula. And then it does rotate it during abduction. So that abduction of the arm, that trapezius helps to roll those scapulas out. Then we've got a middle part of that trapezius. So the upper part elevates, this helps to elevate the scapula. The middle part is going to retract the scapula. So the middle fibers retract the scapula, and then the lower fibers will pull the scapula back in, inferiorly or down. So you can rewatch this if you want to take a look at attachments, if you want to look at innervation, great. I am mostly concerned about muscle movement today. So traps move the scap. There you go. Let's take a peek at the levator. Elevates the scapula. It's one of those lovely muscles that actually is named for what it does. It elevates the scapula. Good. And so it attaches, look where it attaches here, right here at the top. So if this was a 90-degree angle, it would be the superior, inferior, or medial angle of that rhomboid, of that scapula. So, yep, attaches to that medial border of the scap, right up there at the top, and it elevates the scapula. And it does start way up here in the neck. So this is why it feels really good to do that neck work. All right, and finally, rhomboids. We got major and minor. In the bold print, what does the rhomboids do? Major movement of the rhomboids to retract and rotate the scapula. Yes, so to retract. So go ahead and put your arms out in front of you. Your arms out in front and retract. Actually, you can even do it with your elbows. Elbows bent. Bring those elbows back behind you. Squish those shoulder blades together. Go ahead, do it, do it, do it. That's retraction of the shoulder blades. You can imagine a walnut, put a walnut in between your shoulder blades and crack it. Yes, bring those elbows back, back, back. That is retraction of the shoulder blades, and that is done by your rhomboids. Lovely. Nice big picture here of the levator scap. Rhomboids minor is above rhomboids major. That trapezius as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about another group of muscles, and that is the axial humeral group. Okay, I hope you don't see this on the MBLEx, but if you did, no need to freak out. You recognize humeral, has to do with the humerus. Axial, axial skeleton. So these are muscles that are attaching the humerus to the trunk or attach the trunk to the humerus. And super easy. Makes a huge difference in movement though, right? So what's moving the humerus? Pec major, pec minor, and the lats. So the movement of pec major, you can see right there where it attaches to that humerus. And so let's do horizontal adduction, big movement of pec major. So if we're in anatomical position, well, anatomical is down, bring our arms to shoulder height, horizontal, right? We're in that horizontal, and we're going to adduct. So we're going to bring those hands together, adduction. So the movement of pec major horizontal adduction, flexion, and then look again where it's located, medial rotation of that humerus. Yeah, so that's pec major. Medial rotation of the humerus, flexion, and horizontal adduction. When we're talking about flexion at the shoulder joint, we're going to look at that movement in just a minute. Movement of the humerus means that the muscle has to attach to the humerus. So can the rhomboids move the humerus? They cannot. No. Can the traps move the humerus? Cannot. It doesn't attach to the humerus. It can elevate the scapulas, and that causes a chain reaction, but only those muscles that attach to the humerus can move the humerus. Okay? All right. Take a look at those lats. Beautiful picture of these lats. So this is connecting upper and lower body. It's a great big muscle, but it also attaches to the humerus. And so when you are in school, at the gym, and you do that lat pull down, got a bar, and you do that lat pull down. Yeah, because your lats also attach to the humerus. And this is a long muscle that, and here's a nice picture of those lats right here. Got serratus, we got some obliques, the lat muscle attaching to the humerus. And then also, you can see, it comes all the way down the spine, right here to that iliac crest. So it's really a wide muscle. It has two sides. And take a look at the action of your lats. So it extends the humerus, it adducts the humerus, and seems really weird, but it medially rotates the upper limb. So it adducts the humerus, it brings that humerus in towards the body. It's going to also extend. So the movement of extension, right? So my shoulder is back, extension. And then you can memorize this if you want, but it's a really weird one. Lats also medially rotate. They help to medially rotate, but its major movements is adduction and extension. But it's worth throwing in there that it medially rotates as well. All right, other muscles in that region. Got to know a few more. So we've dug deep into some movement on what creates that movement, but deltoid and teres major are also in this region. And so I wanted to cover these two muscles with you as well. The deltoid muscle, let me see there. So we have three parts of the deltoid. Yeah, three. Have the anterior, we have the middle, and we have the posterior. Each one does a different thing. We often will see anterior delt, posterior delt. Usually we don't just see deltoid because they have really different roles. So the anterior fibers, you can see here, they flex the humerus and medially rotate. Deltoid is all about the humerus. So flexion and medial rotation. The posterior fibers, what do you think? Extension, lateral rotation, yes. And then those middle fibers, of course, abduct the arm. So supraspinatus actually gets that movement started, that first part, and then the deltoid takes over. Now, how does teres major and teres minor, how do they go together? How do they work? Let's take a look at major. Remember, minor is the important one. It's a part of the sits muscle. But teres major is a part of the shoulder region. Take a peek here. Teres major, its major movement is actually adduction and extension of the shoulder. It also helps to medially rotate, but that's a weird one. Again, major movements. I want you to just understand how that works. So teres major adducts the arm and also extends the shoulder. Let's take a look at those movements, shall we? Oh, before we do, let's compare. Teres minor attaches to the humerus. Teres major attached to the humerus too, but in the front. So you see teres minor, and then teres minor is going to do the external rotation. Teres major has a nickname. It's Lat's little helper. So if you were to think of the general, like the big muscle of the latissimus, it's got a Lat's little helper, teres major. So major, there's a major in the army as well. So you can see it's a little bit bigger. It's below the teres minor. It is not a rotator cuff muscle. And then minor here. Good. You can see they're related. They're next to each other, but they do very different things. Minor attaches to the posterior compartment, posterior head of the humerus. Major to the anterior compartment. All right, it's time to look at the movements. So we're going to go over the movements, and then we're going to go over also those muscles again. We did talk about the movements, but I wanted to drive it home with some images. More so I wanted to review the location of those muscles we just talked about. Now let's look at them moving and the different movements we were just talking about. When we are talking about movement, I'd like you to remember that we have three types of movement: active, assisted, and passive. So be clear on your MBLEx. What type of movement is happening? Is it active movement? Is the client actively moving their own arm, their own muscles? Are we assisting? Does the client say, oh, I can move my arm to here, and then it hurts? And then do we assist them to move that arm higher? Is there any pain when we assist? So they're going to continue. We're not doing all the movement. They're helping us. But then when we say, be like a rag doll, go ahead and just give me that weight of that arm. That's considered passive. The client is not moving themselves at all. It is passive. Here are our basic shoulder movements. You saw me demonstrating, but let's look at them in cartoons. Flexion, and this is shoulder movement, not scapula movement, shoulder movement. Okay, so flexion at the shoulder joint, extension at the shoulder joint. Go ahead and flex and extend your own shoulder joint. Can you do that if it is safe to do so? Flexion of the shoulder joint, extension of the shoulder joint, abduction and adduction at the shoulder joint. Internal rotation, you can keep that elbow next to your ribs, bringing that humerus into internal rotation, and then external rotation. Lovely. Circumduction, that is making a circle with your hands. So all the way around, whether it's clockwise. Go ahead and do circumduction with your arms. It's a lovely way to warm up the shoulder joint, is circumduction. Go counterclockwise, clockwise. Yes, counterclockwise. Can you start to feel it? Yeah, it's warming up those shoulder joints. It's lovely to do before exercise. Yeah. Let's take a look at our flexion. Flexion at the shoulder joint. What muscles are moving? Pectoralis major, deltoid, coracobrachialis, and it's assisted by the biceps. Can the rhomboids flex the humerus? No, they're in the back. They're going to retract the scapulas, but not flexion of the shoulder joint. We're looking at what muscles are attached to the humerus. That's what bone is moving. That's what muscles we're assessing. Pec major and the deltoid. So the pec major attaches and the deltoid middle fibers of that deltoid. Extension. The posterior deltoid. Deltoid, if they just have deltoid on the answer, you can use it, but it's really posterior deltoid and teres major. Extension. Abduction. Super simple. Deltoid. When you abduct your arm, you can feel it working. Adduction. Got a few others in the mix here. The lats are the major mover in adduction. Pec major assists as well, bringing it down. And then the coracobrachialis is also in there. Stabilizer muscles. Medial rotation of the humerus. Pec major and delt are the big ones. And then we've got the lats and the teres major. I know it seems really odd that the lats and teres major helps with medial rotation, but it's because of where they attach on the humerus. But the big movers in medial rotation are the pec major and the delt. And then we have external rotation. Infraspinatus, deltoid, teres major. Nice. Lateral rotation, big one, infraspinatus. Deltoid, definitely in there, and a little bit of teres major. And let's go ahead and look at two other movements, and that's that horizontal adduction and abduction. Putting the word horizontal in there changes the whole movement, right? We're used to adduction, abduction, AB, abduction, and adduction out here in the frontal plane. Now we're moving into the transverse plane or the horizontal plane. Horizontal abduction, horizontal adduction. All right. Let's take a moment and breathe, shall we? It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot, that movement of the shoulders. And you can review this over and over again. Pardon me for just a moment. This video will be posted, and you can review all of those movements again. And palpate. You are allowed to move during your time at the MBLEx. You are. You're allowed to move. So go ahead and work out what movement that question is asking you about. Yeah. And if the proctor says something to you, say, just working out a question, you know? In fact, there have been more than once that someone is like doing some movement and the proctor walks in and says, can I help you? Yeah, no. I'm just figuring out movement. Let's switch gears to dissecting questions, shall we? Yeah. You ready to answer some questions about movement? All right, let's do this. We have all sorts of different paces that people go through our practice exams. There's all sorts of paces that people are going to go through our questions today. What I would like for you to do is determine your best answer, put that in the chat, but wait until I say go. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, go. That's when you can send your answer in the chat. That way, everybody has a chance to think. Everybody has a chance to second guess themselves. And so many people do. They question their first answer. So stick with your first answer unless you see something desperately wrong. Okay. So back to our questions. Your client reports shoulder pain. What can you do to diagnose the pain? A. Use only passive range of motions tests. B. Use only assisted range of motion tests as they're in pain. C. Refer them to a doctor. You can't do the massage. D. We can assess the condition. We can't diagnose. Good news, your MBLEx is only going to have 3 answers. About 80% of the questions now have 3 answers. So as we move through our slides and we move through our learning, we're adjusting our slides as well. Today we've got 4, we've got 1 or 2 with 3, but good news. So now your client showed up with shoulder pain, and are you going to turn them away? Look at letter C. Refer them to a doctor. You can't do the massage. Well, you don't really know that, do you? You gotta like have a few more pieces of information. So that's not going to be, let's eliminate letter C. That's not going to be our best answer. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Very good, Catherine. You caught it. Yay. Zeynep, you caught good. Tracy, yes. Bria, yup. Sophie, you got it. Rob, nailed it. Yep, yep, yep. Raven, Amy, you guys weren't tricked at all, were you? Good, Shireen. Nice, Siri. Good luck. Dorea and John Robert, yes. Maria, yes. Best answer, boom. We can assess the condition. We can't diagnose. Remember, watch those words, and none of you were tricked. Good job. Next question. The shoulder has 3 joints. What are they? You're like, oh no. Okay, you can get this. There's some obvious wrong answers. Look, the shoulder has 3 joints. What are they? A, the acromioclavicular, the sternoclavicular, and the glenohumeral. B, acromioclavicular, sternocostal, humeroulnar. C, sternocostal, glenohumeral, costovertebral. Or D, glenohumeral, sternoclavicular, and radioulnar. Which can you eliminate? You know you can eliminate a few right now. Let's eliminate one wrong answer. We know it's not. Okay, well, glenohumeral, yes. But look at this one. Costovertebral? Where's that? What's in there? What 2 words are in there? Costovertebral. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Looking for the best answer. Tracy, Bria, Raven and John Robert got it. Zia, Zenap and Keisha. Siri, yep. Catherine got it. Shireen, yep. Amy, yep. Sophie, yep. Lek, yes. Rob, good. Best answer. Boom. Acromioclavicular sternum, letter A. Now, take a look at letter B. We know it's not C because costovertebral is incorrect. We know it's not B because where's your humeral ulnar joint? Ulnar. And then look at letter D, radial ulnar joint. Good work. You didn't think you knew that, did you? Hee hee hee. You did. Next question. The distal end of the humerus is what joint? The distal end of the humerus is what joint? Is it A, the shoulder joint, B, the wrist joint, C, the elbow joint, or D, the finger joints? I'm going to get rid of one wrong answer. It ain't the finger joints. What? 3, 2, 1, go. See if you got it. Tracy and Keisha, yes. Amy, Siri, John Robert, and Shireen, yup. Leck, yes. Oh, Catherine, good. We caught a few people on this one. Caught a few of these people. All right. Best answer. Boom. The elbow joint, right? The distal end of the humerus. Where is it, guys? Where's the distal end? Put your hand on the distal. Your hand is on the proximal end of the humerus, the distal end of the humerus. Proximal and distal. Good work. Next question. Where is the supraspinatus located? Where is the supraspinatus located? Is it A, under the scapula, B, below the spine of the scapula, C, above the spine of the scapula, or D, on the lateral border of the scapula? All right, let's get rid of one wrong answer. Break it down to 3, just like you'll see in the MBLEx. Well, it's not under the scapula, right? There's a different word for under the scapula. 3, 2, 1, go. Where is it? Where is it? Ooh, we got a lot of answers. Catherine's in. Durea, yes. Tracy and John Robert, you got it. Amy and Keisha, good. Siri, yep. Zenap, Sovi, yep. Rob, nailed it. Catherine, Leck, Durea, yep. Raven, yep. You got it. It is above, best answer, above, letter C, above the spine of the scapula. Good job. Yay. All right. Next question. Oop, we already did this one. Guess I have an extra slide. What muscles make up the axial scapular group? Ooh, imagine being asked this on the MBLEx. What muscles make up the axioscapular group? Okay. Rhomboids, trapezius, serratus anterior, and levator scap. A. B. Pec major, pec minor, latissimus dorsi. C. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscap. Only 3 answers. We're not going to eliminate a wrong answer. Go ahead. 3, 2, 1, go. What muscles make up the axial scapular group? Hmm? Hmm? Tracy and Raven, yes. John, Robert, and Amy, good. Shireen and Maria, nice. Sinap, Siri, yes. Catherine, Jerea, yes. Sovi, Lek, good, good. Did you know that term before you came today? Came to class? Best answer. Boo, it's not the sits group. It's letter A. Nice work, you guys. Nice work. So these are all the muscles that move the scapula. They attach the scapula to the trunk. Good work. Next question. What muscle lives on the anterior portion of the scapula and assists in medial rotation of the humerus? What muscle lives on the anterior portion of the scapula and assists with medial rotation of the humerus? Is it A, supraspinatus, B, infraspinatus, C, teres minor, D, subscapularis? Okay, I'm not going to get rid of a wrong answer. I'm going to let you think about it. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, what do you got? What do you got? John Robert, yeah. Tracy, Sophie, and Lek. Zenap, Keisha, good. Raven, excellent. Catherine and Siri, yup, yup, yup. Let's take out Supra. Ooh, we take out Supra because we're not looking at the upper portion. We're looking at the anterior portion, and that is D. Anterior portion of the scapula. Oof, that was a tough one. It's just a weird thing to imagine. So again, remember scratch the back? Scratch the back, that's the back. That's the posterior part of the scapula. Yeah. The front of the scapula, the anterior portion of the scapula, glides against the rib cage. This is our little review before we go to the next question. Supra abducts the arm. It performs that first 15 degrees. Infralaterally rotates, teres laterally rotates, but subscapularis is the only one that medially rotates because it attaches to the front of the head of the humerus. Now, next question. When the scapula moves closer to the spine, what is that movement called? When the scapula moves closer to the spine, what is that movement called? A, protraction, B, retraction, C, elevation, D, depression. All right, let's get rid of one of these. It is not elevation. So when the scapula moves closer to the spine, what is that called? 3, 2, 1, go. John Robert and Siri. Very good. Tracy and Shireen. Yep. Catherine, Amy nailed it. Bria got that. Lek, good. Good. Raven, you nailed it. Dorea, yes. Excellent. We had a few different answers there. When the scapula moves closer to the spine, it is called B, retraction. Right? Bring those elbows back. You're retracting. So when they move closer to the spine, elevation and depression. Elevation and depression. And remember, protraction is that those borders moving away from the spine. Yes. All right. Next question. When the arm crosses the body in the transverse plane, moving in the direction of the midline of the body, engaging the pectoralis muscle, that movement is called what? Ooh, we're going to have to do some movements. Is that movement called A, adduction, B, circumduction, C, horizontal abduction, or D, horizontal adduction? When the arm crosses the body, I'm not going to do it. You get to do it. When the arm crosses the body in the transverse plane, moving toward the midline of the body, engaging the pectoralis muscle, what movement is that called? Is it A, adduction, B, circumduction, C, horizontal abduction, D, horizontal adduction? Let's just go for it. 3, 2, 1, go. Tracy and Zoe, Bria and Lek, yes. Zenap, Raven, good. Keisha, Shireen, you nailed it. John Robert, good. Rob, Amy, yup. Dorea, yup. Good. There was a good answer and there was a better answer. Wasn't circumduction, right? You're not making a pie. Best answer, letter D. Horizontal adduction. You nailed it. Good job. The muscle which is the major mover in flexion is the what? The muscle which is the major mover in flexion. And this question would be written better on your MBLEx because it would say flexion at the glenohumeral joint. Okay? So the muscle which is the major mover in flexion of the glenohumeral joint is the what? Is it the A, posterior deltoid, B, anterior deltoid, or C, bicep on the same side? 3, 2, 1, go. Tracy, yes. Keisha and John Robert, yes. Terry Raven, yes. Rob, yes. Catherine, yes. Ooh. So we're gonna need to review this film. I'm gonna have to redo my slides, make it better so that you understand this answer. Best answer, boom. Anterior deltoid. What is flexion? Ladies and gentlemen, what is flexion at the glenohumeral joint? Yes, flexion at the glenohumeral joint. The posterior deltoid is not involved. Yes, good. And I believe that was our last question. Way! Great work today. I will rework these slides for next time as well so that we go in a even more streamlined order. Yes, great work today. Some tricky questions on that one, right? Yeah, that's why you're here. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the recording by reminding you my name is Jodi Scholes. I'm your instructor for the MBLEx review course. Great work today. Feel free to review this recording if any of those answers seemed tricky. Yeah. We'll see you again here next week. I'm going to hang out with these guys and answer some questions, but I look forward to seeing you next week.